Richie, Mike Norvell, a little bit of an innovator, a trendsetter, if you will. His hand forced on this a little bit, but Florida State was the first team and program to cancel their spring game. Now, obviously, that has a lot to do with the renovations at Doak, and we've had some other changes around college football in Nebraska. Matt Rule talking about he didn't want his players being scouted and then tampered with. And, at first I kind of took that as just whining, right? But then I kind of thought like, oh, wait, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. We stole a lot of their staff. Like maybe he really does have a legitimate gripe there to not want to showcase some of his players. Since then, Texas is getting like it's not just like one or two. So anyway, it seems to be kind of the trend in college football. Richie, is it a hot take to say that in 2 years, like I don't know if it'll be all the way done by the 2026 spring. It would shock me in 2027 if we had traditional spring games. And that might even be underselling it. Like we might not have them next year. Get right back to the video, but first, I do want to give some love to BetUS. Make sure that you are betting with BetUS. Right now, college basketball is super hot, and they've got baseball stuff over there right now. Obviously, the Seminoles on fire to start the season. Make sure that you're betting with BetUS. YouTube 150 is the code. You get 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit, 125 on your next two. All of that up to $2,000, whether you're betting on NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, college football, college basketball, whatever it is. BetUS has you covered. Make sure you're using YouTube 150 when you sign up.
And honestly, there is no point of having a spring game, in my opinion. The risk to reward just is not there. Spring games are for the fans, and most fans don't care about it unless they get excited. They have a new head coach, who has a lot of a big name, and he's coming in, and you're just excited. Like we saw with Willie Taggart's spring game, right? That crowd was amazing, but the game itself, does anybody remember anything outside of the double pass? Because I don't. I think that spring games are pretty pointless. I think it's good. Just use it as an extra practice and maybe open it up to the media. I know Florida State opens all their practices up to the media, but other schools say, hey, we're going to have a scrimmage. It's not going to be the most exciting. It's not going to be like a game. It's going to be situational. It's going to be, third and short, fourth and short, third and long. But yeah, I just don't see the excitement of a spring game. For some fans, it's nice because it's a cheap way to go back to your favorite team's school campus to just reminisce and go to your favorite places to eat, like Guthrie's, or just meet up with old friends. But as a program, there's really no benefit. You're not raising a ton of money at these spring games. You raise all your money on the spring booster tour. I just don't see the point of them. It there was a time where they were kind of exciting for a little bit. When your team's good, obviously you're going to have better spring turnout. Obviously, the stadium's under renovation right now, so it makes sense not to have the spring game. But coming off a 2-win season, you might be lucky to have 20,000 people show up in Tallahassee. But in general, and even if you do have spring games, I think they almost turn into bowl games in that your best returning players are not going to play.
Yeah.
Because there's no point. We all remember Antonio Cromartie, one of the best athletes ever at Florida State, who never did much on the field, but we all knew was going to be a superstar in the NFL. He got hurt in the offseason. So why risk injury? Or if you want to have a spring game, make it like a fun weekend, have different events going on. But, and I hate to say it because I don't even watch it anymore, but make it like the Pro Bowl, turn it into a flag football game to really limit that risk of injury. But even then, you can still tear your ACL playing flag football. I've seen it happen in intramural flag football games.
Yeah, I'll tell you where it sucks. It does suck for I've talked with folks at Garnet and Gold. I've talked with folks at Guthrie's, and it doesn't like make or break their year, especially the way that Norvell has done spring games. He has made them a little more situational, and they're not like a true game like some programs continue to do. But it does suck for some of those local businesses that, when they built their business, they counted on that revenue, right? Like, hey, we're going to have a very seasonal type of business that we know that we'll do good business here or there, and we'll be fine. But man, those 6 or 7 weekends in the fall, that one weekend in the spring, we'll get some baseball, basketball, softball like trickle in too. It does suck for the local businesses, and so I don't want to completely gloss over it and just say like, oh well, just it doesn't matter, because it does matter for some people. But I heard this take, and you've got some good points. I've got a couple of thoughts on this, not necessarily just on Florida State, but when you think about Nebraska canceling, when you think about Texas, we had Brooks. I think we've had Brooks Austin on here before to talk about the game before. Or we talked about the bowl game in the 2023 season with Brooks, and he brought this up, and I thought it was a pretty good point. I don't know how much of it's Matt Rule not wanting his players to get tampered with, because let's not act like we don't know who, everybody recruited all these kids. Everybody watched all these kids play last year. Like, there aren't really a lot of hidden gems out there that nobody knew about. Like, we know who most of the good players are on most of the teams. And there are entire scouting departments that are like staffed right now to tamper, right? Like to go, hey, who are the good players on these teams that we need to have back channel to tamper with? So I think it is a huge expenditure, though, a huge cost to Florida State. And this is what Brooks said. If I'd have thought about it, I'd have pulled his clip, but it's the film guy on YouTube. Go check out Brooks. He does a great job. But it's a huge expenditure because you have to hire all the security, you have to hire all the game day staff, you have to, hire Tallahassee Police Department, everybody else like to come out and work the game, and then you don't make any money, right? Tickets are $5 each, which means nothing, right? It's $100,000 at the end of the day if 20,000 people show up, but it doesn't move the needle at all, right? And so you got all these expenses, and right now with revenue sharing coming in, with NIL crazier than it's ever been, with all the questions on how budgets are going to be balanced and the things, or maybe even sports that are going to be cut, does it really make sense for the school to invite anywhere between 20 and 80,000 people to their campus to put on a spring game or a spring showcase or whatever you're going to call it, with very little return, right? Like, especially with the financial issues that so many schools are in because of rev sharing, because of suing their conference, because of whatever's going on. It's being labeled as like this tampering thing. I just think it's, hey man, we don't have the money to just blow right now on a spring game that, and I'm not saying the tampering thing is not part of it. I'm not saying that, obviously in our situation with the renovations, that's really why it happened. But that's why I think by 2027, there won't be a spring game type thing anymore. I don't know. So that's my thought on that. Secondly, you mentioned this. I love what Ole Miss did. Like, Ole Miss they had like different competitions. They did not have a spring game last year. They more so made it like the Pro Bowl, right? Like, they had kind of fun things going on, 7-on-7, stupid stuff like, shoot, do a pie eating contest. I don't care, right? Like, just something fan. I'll tell you, if you could combine what Ole Miss does and what UF does, and I hate to give them credit, but I'm going to. The way that they do, and we did this the first year of the Battle's End, did like the player autographs and the signings and stuff. And the Battle's End has kept up like doing stuff. So it's not just UF, but UF like incorporates it so well. Their buy-in is so big on the university side, the program side, the athletic side, that they do such a good job of like, they make it very personal. You can go down and meet the players, and they do signings before and after. And shoot, I think they were allowed to like go down on the field or something after. Don't quote me on that, but if you could combine the idea of like what Ole Miss did along with what UF did, now that would still be an expense. But if you center it around NIL or around like giving back to the players, that is a good way to, hey, you may not go dollar for dollar on your day of, but if those people are then sign up to give to the program in a way that is either through the boosters or through NIL, your collective or whatever, not just Florida State, but all programs, that'd be a smart thing to do. Because if you said like, hey, this is going to cost us $150,000 to put on a spring game, or 200, I don't know what the cost is to put on a spring game, but hey, it's going to cost us 250, but we're going to raise $2 million over the year because of NIL and people giving back and stuff. Like, that to me seems like a good investment. Again, I'm just throwing numbers out there. I don't know what it costs to put it on. I don't know how much you could actually raise. But if you could combine what Ole Miss and Florida are doing, that would be the best situation. Because I agree with you. It is a great opportunity for, shoot, I would take my kids to a spring game before I'd take them to the Bama game, right? Like, it's a more chill atmosphere. There's less people. It is like we're all starved for football. We're talking about it here in late February because we love it. And so you're kind of giving something back to the fans a little bit, who are essentially support and making the program, stay afloat with their donations. So I don't know. Those are some of my thoughts. Like, it would be really cool if you could see not just Florida and Ole Miss, but other programs kind of adapt and make it like a fan-centric thing. I don't know if that ends up happening. Maybe they don't do anything, but it'd be cool if there was something in the spring.
Yeah, to respond to both of those points real quickly, Cassie, as my friend who hosted the party on Saturday, which is a great get together. And they're huge huge Florida Gator fans. Her and her husband Tyler both went there, and we were talking about it. And they have two young kids, 4 years old and 2 years old. And we were talking about football and how they are going up to the spring game. And it was funny. They called it a trial run to see if they could make it to a full regular season game. So for families with young kids, it is probably a bummer because it's a really cheap way to get your family up there. Hotel prices are still high, but not nearly as high as they would be. And then, to your point, tying NIL with everything, you could almost run it like a golf tournament, right? I was at a charity. I got invited by a vendor to a charity scramble on Friday, and every hole there was different charities there. And you know who all the biggest donors were? Were people that were there representing companies as corporate sponsors. We got up to one hole, and we knew we weren't going to do it. It was basically a long drive guy. You pay him, $20, and he can hit the drive for you instead of you hitting it. And he said, if you get up to this level, you're entered for a chance to win 2 tickets to Pebble Beach, but you have to hole out from 150 yards, which is a safe bet because no one's going to do that. None of these amateurs, especially with alcohol on every hole. But they had a leaderboard of donors, and people weren't putting their names; they were putting their company's names. And the guy I was with, I won't say the company because they don't sponsor us just yet, at least. The top donation so far was $300. He goes out, pulls out his corporate credit card, says, "Put me down for 400. I want my company's name on the top of the leaderboard." Like, people are competitive, and there's certain ways. I think you could use that golf scramble format if anyone's ever been to one that is solely focused on raising money for charity and tie that into NIL. You could find different things to do, and I'm not sure what that is because I just kind of thought of it off the top of my head when you were speaking. But yeah, I think there is value, but there's no value whatsoever in a traditional padded spring game anymore.
Yeah, I just don't think it makes a lot of sense. Um, I mean, just for anything, right? Like you talked about injuries, tampering, expenses, just all the things, right? Like there's just you've got, and so you got to be creative, right? And that's if the marketing team needs help, just hit up me and Richie, and we'll be happy to help you be creative because I think we solved the issue here today.